Hi, I'm Scott Campbell, Director of the Carroll County Department of Public Safety, and welcome to Carroll 101, the 2021 edition. First, I'd like to share other very important folks who help manage our department, specifically Ms. Valerie Hawkins, who is our Emergency Management Manager, and Mr. Jack Brown, who is our Emergency Communications Manager. Now, let's first start with an overview of what our department does. We have an approved budget in the current fiscal year of approximately $5.6 million operating and approximately $1 million in capital funds. Now, there are a number of things that our department does. Two of the most common are going to be, probably sound familiar to you, and that is emergency communications and emergency management. But we have a third, what I call silo or division, that's emergency services or support services, and things that we will elaborate on as we go through this presentation. Something that would probably help you understand how we fit into the county structure is to get an idea that as a standalone department, what our hierarchy looks at, so you can see how we compare to other departments. I am the commissioner appointed director of the department, and as you can see from the hierarchy that's available, that you can see how the flow of our different divisions or areas of responsibility are. And one area you'll see that's not on this slide, but the next is the area for the Emergency Communications Center, the ECC, because that into itself is a rather busy hierarchy. Now, in this slide of the ECC hierarchy, you'll see, I believe it's in gray, I apologize, looking to the right, I can see it's in gray to where myself and my administrative assistant are in it. So what's important on this slide is to see what's in yellow, and that is the Emergency Communications Manager, Mr. Jack Brown I spoke of, and the various shift structure that he has to staff the county's emergency communications / 911 center. So, like any agency, we have our mission. And our mission is, and I apologize, I want to read this correctly, to protect and maintain the lives and property of the people that live, work, and visit Carroll County, as well as the natural resources that the county contains. I know that sounds rather broad, and it may even sound familiar to others, but the fact is, that is our mission, to protect and maintain lives and property. So what do we do? You heard me say just briefly that there are two things that are probably very common, and unfortunately some of you may actually have personal experience with, at least the emergency communication side, the 911 side, but emergency 911, emergency communications, and emergency management are the two very common, very well spoke about, and unfortunately in these times probably more so than any one of us want to hear about emergency management in those aspects. But then the third that I mentioned that is not quite as well defined is emergency services kind of support. It's kind of more of a catch-all, and we'll elaborate on that. So this more catch-all, what are the things that we do beyond the obvious, the emergency 911, radio dispatch, and the emergency management? Well, we do things like provide plan review. By plan review, I mean we look at site plans and subdivisions from an emergency services perspective. We have a gentleman on our staff who reviews all building construction drawings, all commercial, to ensure compliance with the state fire prevention code, again, to protect life and property. Something else that we do in our shop, we have an automated external defibrillator, AED program, that right now we have 48 AEDs placed throughout the county. They're in our senior centers, in the branch libraries, county office buildings, you name it. If it's a public building, we've tried to protect it or provide protection with it by placing one or more AEDs in the facility. Something else that we do, which I think is a fantastic asset that the county provides, is that we establish water supplies in areas in the county that don't have public water, nor do they have a natural form or natural water supply that is reliable, year-round accessible to support firefighting operations. And I know it's necessarily a good thing, but it proves their worth, that it seems like no sooner do we install one of these 30,000-gallon underground water storage tanks that they're used for a fire in areas, and some of the most remote areas. As I said, they're all over the county. I believe we have 10 of them, and that's county installed. There's some that were done through the development process that we cooperatively have taken into our inventory, but 10 that the county has funded. That's well over $1 million worth of an investment in making sure that the fire service has what it needs to do what it's expected to do. The last thing I'll mention as far as what else we do, we're also very blessed to have on our staff a GIS analyst, and he provides everything from mapping support to the 911 center to assisting the emergency management folks when they have an event that requires an activation of their emergency operations center. You can probably imagine the benefit of being able to visually see the location where damage has occurred because of an event, where flooding is taking place. If there's a hazardous material situation to where there's a potential spill, the GIS analyst can help do some mapping to show what might be affected should the spill worsen or should a spill occur. And something else that our GIS analyst does, and this is something, a new responsibility of our department, but I think a very important one, is we are responsible for the county's addressing efforts. That is to make sure that when there is a new property established, a new building, that it is provided with an appropriate, my term, spatially accurate street address, so that when we're looking for you, we can find you quickly and accurately. Go back to the things that we do, and I'm going to go back to one of the two fundamentals, and that is the emergency or the 911 services and emergency management operations. To be candid, those two have legal mandates, but we don't necessarily do things in Carroll County just because the law mandates that we do them. We do them to the extent that they need to be done. So we don't worry about just meeting some minimum benchmark. If a job needs to be done, we're committed to doing it as well as we can. And that is true of both the 911 effort as well as our emergency management effort. Now, if I may, how about a brief overview about the emergency communications aspect? Now, there are two primary functions in the emergency communications division. One is the obvious, answering calls made to 911. Any call that originates in Carroll County, and I say this, should be answered by our Emergency Communications Center. There's a term for that center. It's called a PSAP, Public Safety Answering Point. Every jurisdiction in the state of Maryland is required by law to have that PSAP, that 911 center. But how well we do it, to the extent we do it, the arrangements we have with other jurisdictions, who we serve in addition to the minimum 911 responsibilities, that's what I meant about we try to go above and beyond so that the job is done well. The other part of what the Emergency Communications Center does is it also does the dispatch of all fire and EMS assets in the county, as well as a majority, but not all, of the law enforcement agencies in Carroll County. So how does 911 work? Well, it's real simple. When you dial 911, we have done everything possible to ensure that if you're in Carroll County, that call comes to Carroll County. Now, if it's a hardwired call like the old telephones that we're all used to having, at least I am at my age, or something that could be more reliably routed, we're pretty confident it's going to come here. But when you're talking about wireless technology, it can only be a best effort. Example, you're in an area such as Mount Airy that's on the border of other jurisdictions, or any of the other many communities that Carroll has that's near other jurisdictions. You dial 911 using your cell phone. That goes to the nearest tower that provides that your carrier operates from. If we have done our job and it works the way it's designed, the panel, the antenna that receives your call, will route your call to us. But that's not a guarantee. But don't be concerned, because if that happens, that you go to an adjacent panel and it goes to an adjacent jurisdiction, you're going to get immediate assistance. They're prepared for it. They'll either transfer the call if the conditions allow, or if things are so imminent that in your emergency, whomever you speak to is going to take the information and they will share it with us immediately. You're going to get help. You will not be lost in the system. So that's what I mean by when I say that, unfortunately, no process is perfect. But the good point is, if something does go not as planned, we're prepared. So what happens when you call 911? Well, maybe I should back up. When you call or text 911, because Carroll County is fortunate that we are text to 911 capable. Regardless, when you reach out to 911, the first thing a caller is going to hear is they're going to hear Carroll County 9, where you've reached Carroll County 911, what is the location of your emergency? And why is that the first question? Because if we don't know where you are, if we can't find you, we can't help you. If the only thing we get is you need help at a location, at least we can send somebody to that location to find out what is going on. If you start out with a name or the nature of the incident, But a medical emergency, or there's a vehicle on fire in front of my house or in the parking lot, but no descript address, 400 and some square mile county, odds are we're not going to be able to find you in a timely way. You tell us where the emergency is, and if that's all we know, at least we can send emergency service to investigate if that's the only information we get from you. So no question, address, location, single most important thing. If we can't find you, we can't help you. So let's now move to emergency management. Well, again, I try to avoid the cliches, et cetera, but in the emergency management world, it's simply known as planning, preparing, responding, and recovering from whether it's a natural or a man-made emergency or disastrous event, a catastrophe. Another very important term is mitigation. And mitigation can be achieved either by doing things to eliminate a potential risk, or if you can't eliminate that risk of something possibly happening, is trying to lessen the likely impact if something happens. You're not going to stop a tornado from falling out of the sky, but you may be able to avoid putting things of critical importance, lives, in danger in areas that are prone to flooding. So you might be able to do some things by controlling. You may do other things by trying to address the potential impact for things that we just cannot control or mitigate. So something else you heard me say is both natural disasters and human-caused or man-made, because unfortunately, anything's possible. Yes, this is Carroll County, and we may not have the probability of some things happening here that other jurisdictions have, but we sure have the potential. Airplanes can fall out of the sky, trains can derail, tankers carrying flammable liquids can flip over and leak. Unfortunately, there's probably a number of things that can happen here, but fortunately, the probability of them occurring is very, very slim. So awareness is very important, and our emergency management folks do a phenomenal job of trying to make sure that folks are aware of things that are both occurring acutely, something has imminently occurred or is about to occur. So we have something called Carroll Alert, which is basically our mass notification system, but it also has the ability to be tailored to target audiences. There's a Prepare Me Carroll app, which is available for the iOS as well as Android devices. It's free in the applicable app store. And then we also have a presence on social media, both Facebook and Twitter. And as you can see on the screen, as far as the way to follow emergency management on either of those platforms. So why should what we do matter to you? Well, instead of trying to get too much into specifics, I'll let you answer that one for yourself. Can you imagine not being able to immediately call and quickly receive assistance in the event of an emergency? I mean, not just the frustration, et cetera, but imagine the likely catastrophic event that if you have something occur and you can't get assistance, what the outcome would probably be. Someone's in a life-threatening medical emergency and you can't get help. Probably not going to be a good outcome. Someone is witnessing a crime and calls for law enforcement to intervene, and we can't get them there quickly. Probably not going to be a good outcome. So that's what I share, why we do what we do to get you help as reliably, as timely, as quickly, as accurately as we can. Something else. Consider the chaos that would likely come to bear if emergency management didn't do its planning and preparing for and anticipating things that happen, mitigating the things that they can. Imagine the likely increased seriousness or impact of events if they weren't to do those kinds of things. So they look at potential occurrences, they prepare for them, they plan for them, they pre-plan how they're going to respond should they occur, and they even have plans in place for how they will affect trying to return to whatever is considered normal after the fact to recover from. So instead of me trying to give you some specifics, if you will, just answer those two questions for yourself. Why what we do is important to you, and I think you can answer that pretty quickly. So some recent accomplishments. Well, we were able to expand and enhance both our primary and our alternate emergency communications center, or as you heard me call it, a PSAP, the place where they answer 911 calls and where they dispatch fire, rescue, EMS, law enforcement from. Something I also mentioned previously, Carroll County recently became text to 911 operational. Actually, we were one of the first in the state to do so, but we participated in the statewide rollout, which probably gave folks the impression that we weren't operational as early as we were. Good point, though, by the state, not to do that in a haphazard way. Last thing you want is someone traveling through this beautiful state and not knowing from jurisdiction to jurisdiction, I can or I can't text to 911. And I think it was right for the state to say, we're going to roll this out in a uniform, inclusive way, and that's what we did. Something else you can see on the slide is one of our latest 30,000 gallon underground fire protection water storage tank installations. This one happens to be in the New Windsor Fire District, as you can see by their engine company, that they're actually doing an operational test after installation. Really important to let you see this because in the upper left, if you look at that large tank, that's 55 feet in length and 10 foot in diameter. That holds 30,000 gallons of water. Well, there's a number of reasons why that amount of water was what we chose. First of all, it's the largest single vessel that can be shipped over land without a special permit. But it also happens to coincide with the insurance industry and the fire services when it comes to the quantity of water and flow rates that are considered appropriate to fight structure fires, et cetera. And it gives us the opportunity to put these in places that maybe a larger field, tank field or something would not be feasible. So 30,000 gallon, if you allow me to say, is kind of that sweet spot to allow us to do that. And then the last thing I'll share is that it wasn't too long ago that we were very fortunate, that we transitioned to a new CAD, or computer-aided dispatch system. This included a substantial upgrade to what the people in the field providers, see as far as information in the form of an MDT, a mobile data terminal, and now probably better labeled an MDC, mobile data computer. Every police car, every fire engine, medic unit, ladder truck in this county has got basically a vehicle-mounted laptop computer or tablet in it. So not only can the dispatchers interact with these assets through the radio, but they have this computer interaction capability. We can share response route information, supplemental information on the incident going to, and et cetera. And all this came to be because the commissioners agreed to fund a transition to a new CAD platform that supported these mobile data terminals. So some examples of public safety in action. I'm sure most of you remember Winter Storm Jonas, January of 2016. Now, Carroll County doesn't get frequent large snowstorms, but let's just say we get more than our fair share. Well, Winter Storm Jonas, as you can see by the pictures, dumped a lot of snow in the county, some areas in the county getting more than 32 inches. Just to give you an example of how emergency management responded, they opened the EOC on Friday the 22nd, and it remained open and functional until Sunday the 24th. And the governor declared a state of emergency 7 a.m. Friday the 22nd of January, and that was primarily to facilitate and free up assets for preparations. And then our commissioners, in a proactive way, declared a local state of emergency 8 a.m. the next morning as conditions start to bear out. Here's another example, the tornado that struck in November of 2018 in the Mount Airy area. The bottom left, you'll see a screenshot of the radar, and the upper arrow shows you the approximate path of the area of the storm as it moved through, the front in this case, that spawned the tornado. So look in the red box with the white text. That was what we were to anticipate. I don't think anywhere you'll see likelihood of tornadoes or the possibility of tornadoes in that. Showers and perhaps a thunderstorm and the locations, et cetera. But because anything can happen at any time, as it turns out, an EF1, I'm looking for the confirmed, the National Weather Service, an EF1 tornado struck. Fortunately, it didn't take lives or cause casualties. Now, as you can see from this picture, there was structural damage, but we were very fortunate that it didn't occur in an area that was more highly populated. But that shows you, how emergency management responded to something that they really weren't given a heightened awareness for, but because they were prepared, that when it did happen, they had a plan in place to respond or react to it. So I'm going to go back to and finish with emergency communications, our 911 center, and here's why. One of the things that we want to talk about is challenges, future challenges. Well, like any agency, we're facing many, but there's one that into itself is probably as challenging or daunting as everything else we're facing in our shop, and that is the pending transition to next generation or next gen or even NG 911. It's a paradigm change. The old way of picking up the phone and contacting 911 by dialing or punching in a number over a hard copper line, those days are soon to be gone. and everything's going to be IP-based. Everything's going to be web-based. The way calls are routed are going to change, et cetera. And it's all for the good, but it's a paradigm change. And it's not just the technology that's going to change. People are going to be able to send photographs, WAV files, email to contact the 911 center. So the impact, we're still evaluating it, and there's still a lot of questions that we don't have answers for, but we're working hard to get them. What are we going to do with this information? Is there going to be a concern for maintaining the records, for a chain of custody? Or is it evidence? Who's going to evaluate or use the information? Are we going to pass it on to law enforcement, to the fire rescue EMS people? Are we going to retain it for future consultation? Could it impact, likely will, the qualifications of the folks who work at the 911 center? Is this going to require a new skill set? What's going to be the impact on the folks when they see information that they aren't currently exposed to? When they see photographs and videos of things going on that right now, by the grace of God, they're insulated from having to endure on a day in, day out basis. So that's why we say the next gen 911 and everything that comes with it, the technology, the training, the staffing, the concern for liability, records retention, the list goes on, without any question, is the most daunting future challenge that we are working very hard to address as we speak. So with that, I hope I've covered most of what the Carroll County Department of Public Safety is about, what we do. But here's what's most important. If you have any questions whatsoever, please don't hesitate. You'll see the contact information from myself and the two folks that I mentioned previously, Ms. Valerie Hawkins and Mr. Jack Brown. You are welcome to reach out to any of us, myself, Ms. Hawkins, Mr. Brown, about anything. If it's not in their bailiwick, I'm sure they will refer you to the right person. I will simply share, I would recommend that if you have a question about emergency management, give Ms. Hawkins a call, send her an email. And similarly, if it's about communications, 911, reach out to Mr. Brown. And I'm very confident that you'll find both of them very helpful. So I hope this was as informative as it was intended to be. I appreciate your interest. And again, if you have any future questions, we look forward to hearing from you. Thank you.